No, but the press conference will start at 1.
The media availability is right after. The media availability is right after.
Press conference.
I can't see that being 45.
So the press conference starts at 1, and then so I got an info from my producer that the Q&A would start at like 1:25. Media availability. I don't know what that means. Like the Q&A. No, it starts at 1.
Yeah.
And it will
Who are you with?
How things are evolving.
questions about the tax. Well, that's what this tax conference is about.
I think we're like 10 minutes out, everybody. Apologies, but thank you.
Okay, I don't know where you want to set up, but
Oh, and the tripods already been set up.
It's not even open.
It's our first tour. It's always what time is your show?
5.
Wait, did you remove 3 chairs? Thank you.
That's fine. Yeah, you can put it on the ground. Yeah.
Thank you. Please feel free to take a seat. Hi, are we live right now or no? You're okay. Fair enough. No, just because one of our stakeholders was like, "Are we live?" I'm like, "No," and he's like, "I got a screenshot." I was like, "Oh, just wanted to double check." Okay.
That's not open to us.
It is not yet.
Alright, so
And it'll
my
be after.
colleague, that's why it was.
Oh, okay. No, I don't. I don't know if that was ever put out that it was.
Okay.
Maybe it was an assembly, but no, it was never open to me yet.
Okay.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah. Test, test, 1, 2. Hello, good morning. Test, test, 1, 2. Good morning. Hello. Test, test, 1, 2. Sweet, sweet. Awesome.
That's the bathroom break. That's the famed bathroom break.
No, actually, he went to get my phone. Can I call?
Yeah. Oh,
I'm not.
sure. Yeah, yours looks empty on that side. Hi, can you look?
For the top right.
And that his looks really sick, you know. He's like, there's like a big gap. Can okay, I think maybe the front row is a little bit more this way again. Yes. Oh yeah, for sure. Thank you so much. That looks better. And then yours looks good. Okay. We're good. That's great. Thank you. You guys look amazing. What? Keep losing people though.
That's great.
Yeah, right.
We'll be starting in like we'll be starting in like 2 minutes. Sorry for the
Select all. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the YMCA. I'm Leslie Davidson. I'm the President and CEO of the YMCA of Greater Toronto, and it's our pleasure to host you all here today. I want to extend a warm welcome to Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, Chrystia Freeland, along with Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations, Gary Anota-Sangari, and to all of our guests joining us here today. I'd like to begin our gathering with a land acknowledgement. So just a few kilometers from here, east of the Don River, an ancient burial ground was recently discovered when city workers were digging to repair some infrastructure. I live close by and I drive by this site daily, which still sits under a tent covering the whole with security 24/7. It's in a neighborhood where several discoveries of Iroquoian remains and artifacts have been uncovered over the past 2 centuries. And we know from the discoveries that this area that we are on today has been the site of human activity for over 10,000 years, and are reminders of the First Nation communities who used to live, hunt, fish, and raise their children here. I think about how the Don River would have been so critical to life with its fertile grounds and vast ecosystem. And I'm grateful to the traditional stewards of the lands and the water on these traditional territories of the Anishinaabe First Nations, particularly Mississaugas of the Credit and the Haudenosaunee and the Huron-Wendat peoples. And I'm grateful for their continued care and teachings about our earth and our relationships. Of course, this area is still home to so many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, including residential school survivors, and I acknowledge our privilege at the YMCA to create programs and to gather together on this land. Our mission at the YMCA of Greater Toronto is to ignite the potential in people, helping them to grow, lead, and give back to their communities. Our own history in Canada dates back 173 years, and we've long known that when charities like the Y thrive, the communities thrive. Today, we have over 460 programs in locations across the GTA, and each year we roughly serve about 750,000 people with our programs and our services, including licensed childcare, employment and skills training, newcomer settlement services, youth programming, camping, leadership development, and of course, health, fitness, and aquatics. As the CEO of the Y, I'm not allowed to have my favorites, but if I could, it would be this very building that we're meeting on here today, the Central YMCA. It might just be my favorite, and that's because this was where I first began my career at the YMCA, and I had the privilege of working alongside the community here to build and coordinate the important programs that we still deliver. Over the years, I've seen this facility, like so many across the GTA, become a critical piece of community infrastructure where people come to connect with one another, to participate in programs together, to volunteer, and to reach their full potential and, by extension, the potential of the community. Rest assured that many of our programs and services would not be possible without the important support we receive from our government partners, including the Government of Canada. We are honored to have some of these government partners here with us today. So please join me in welcoming Minister Anota Shangari to the podium.
Good afternoon, everyone, and let me begin by acknowledging that we are gathering here on the traditional lands of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. And I want to thank you, Leslie, for welcoming us today. The YMCA is a very special place for all Canadians, and I want to just reflect on my experience with the Y for many years. When I practiced law in Scarborough, I often hired from the Y program, and we had many young people who were supported in seeking their first opportunity, and some of them I'm still in touch with today. So your work around not just Toronto but across Canada is remarkable. We were in Regina several weeks ago visiting one of the many childcare facilities that you offer. And as we look at every major community across Canada, it wouldn't be what it is without the incredible work of your colleagues. So thank you for this. I would like to, I'm here to speak about a very important issue, one that speaks to basically fairness for every generation. Right now, young people feel left out of many parts of the Canadian economy. They don't feel like they have the same opportunities as their parents did. Good jobs that pay well, opportunities to save for a home, to buy their first home. We have to change that. Since the very beginning, our government has been making changes to make life more fair. First, we brought in tax cuts for the middle class by raising them on the wealthiest 1%. We brought in universal childcare, $10 a day childcare, which will enable families to have both parents working. And in this case, we know that 86% participation rate of women in the last data point that I saw speaks to what kind of a transformational change that this is starting to make on women, but more importantly, to Canadians across the board. The universal child benefit. This is an important aspect of the work that we've done. Dental care for seniors and young people. Pharmacare that just came in. All are important ways in which we're making it more affordable for Canadians. This means that we are not losing, this doesn't mean that we're losing sight of very important things like climate change, which impacts us profoundly in every single part of Canada, whether it's through wildfires, we've seen droughts, we've seen flooding, and we see the climate and the temperature changing up in the north. It's had a profound impact on Indigenous people and their ways of life. It also does not mean that we're slowing down on reconciliation. In fact, if anything, we're working harder to ensure that reconciliation is at the core of the work we do. The relationships that we have that has been tarnished over the course of colonialism is one that will take many, many years to mend, but make no mistake, we are implementing the 94 calls to action of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's calls to action, as well as the 231 calls to justice of the MMIWG-2S report, along with our commitment to implement the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. Yesterday, I was pleased to join Minister Kara to talk about Canada's second anti-racism strategy that looks to ensure that Canada addresses the issues of systemic racism in all its forms. And this includes ensuring that we walk the path of reconciliation, but also implement and ensure that issues around anti-Black racism, Islamophobia, anti-Semitism are addressed. Today, the Deputy Prime Minister is going to speak about another way our government is changing the game and ultimately making life more fair. With that, I'm absolutely delighted to welcome the Honourable Chrystia Freeland, who is a very dear colleague who represents the riding in Toronto, and someone who has been a champion. And I know as a colleague now in Cabinet, she's one that I go to all the time to seek her guidance and support. And I know that every time we talk about reconciliation, for example, she is there. She is there to listen. She is there to ensure that we deliver on the promises we made. But more importantly, she brings an enormous amount of passion and compassion to this role. This is not a number crunching role as previous finance ministers have been. This is a role where she essentially ensures that our finances are intact while making life easier for Canadians and addressing those who've been left behind for far too long. So with that, I'm delighted to invite the Honourable Chrystia Freeland to make this announcement.
Well, thank you very much, Leslie. Thank you very much for welcoming us here. Like Gary, the Y is a really important part of my community, of my family's life, and I am so grateful as a Canadian for everything everyone who works here does. Gary has singled out the work you are doing in building our national system of early learning and childcare, and I'm going to second that, Leslie, because it is so important for our country, and the Y is really at the forefront of that work. And I want to say, Gary, thank you for being here. Thank you for all of your work. Thank you for the work you do for Tamil Canadians. Thank you for the work you do for the people of Scarborough. Thank you for the work you are doing on reconciliation. You really are a great friend and such an important voice in our country and in our government. And I'm grateful that you're here with me today. So, good afternoon. I'd like to start by acknowledging that we're gathered on the traditional territories of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat people. Thanks everyone for joining me today. As I said, I'm really glad to be here with my colleague, Minister Gary Anasangari. I am so glad to be here with the incredible people at the YMCA, and I'm so grateful for your work. Today, I'm going to talk about taxes and the investments they allow us to make in Canada and Canadians. I'd like to begin by asking us all to imagine we were creating Canada's tax system from scratch, and we had to choose between two options. We could choose to give the greatest tax advantages to those who are already the most well off. Or we could ask every Canadian to pay their fair share to keep Canada strong. Now, I am confident that most of us here in Toronto and across Canada would choose fairness. Because I know that in Canada, we believe in taking care of each other. In Canada, we believe in fairness. That's the Canadian way. And that's why tomorrow our government is taking action to improve tax fairness for all Canadians. Tomorrow, we will introduce changes that will result in a small number of well-off Canadians paying a little more in tax when they sell a successful investment. In turn, that revenue will pay for investments that will help all Canadians, especially our younger generations. It will help fund our plan to build more homes faster, so more younger Canadians can achieve the dream of home ownership. It will help make life cost less for Canadians. Already, $10 a day childcare is saving young parents thousands of dollars a year. And childcare fees reduced by 50% are saving young parents thousands of dollars a year. These tax changes will allow us to expand our national system of early learning and childcare and get down to $10 a day from coast to coast to coast so that more Canadian families can benefit. Ces revenus vont aussi nous permettre de soutenir de nouveaux programmes importants pour réduire le coût de la vie, comme le régime national d'assurance médicaments, qui va permettre l'accès gratuit aux contraceptifs et à des médicaments contre le diabète. Ils vont permettre de mettre sur pied un programme national d'alimentation scolaire. Et ils vont soutenir le régime canadien de soins dentaires. Plus de 2 millions de Canadiennes et Canadiens ont déjà reçu l'approbation qui leur permettra d'aller voir le dentiste ou l'hygiéniste dans l'ensemble du pays. Enfin, ces changements vont nous aider à susciter une croissance économique profitable pour tout le monde. Le type de croissance qui amènera la prospérité en entraînant la création de bons emplois, une augmentation des investissements et une hausse de la productivité. Pour ce faire, nous devons consolider notre avantage dans le domaine de l'intelligence artificielle. Investir dans les étudiants, les chercheurs et leurs cerveaux canadiens. Accélérer la réalisation des grands projets. Et veiller à ce que le Canada soit une chef de file mondiale dans les industries de demain, afin de créer plus d'emplois qui nous mèneront vers un avenir carboneutre. Now, Canada could finance these critical investments by taking on more debt. But that would place an unfair burden on our younger generations. Fiscal responsibility matters, and our fiscally responsible approach is in part what enabled Canada to lower interest rates this past week, the first G7 country to do so. Interest rates are coming down because inflation is falling. Inflation fell to 2.7% in April, down from 2.9% in March. That's 4 months in a row that inflation has been within the Bank of Canada's target range. That's good news. In fact, inflation has fallen to its lowest level in 3 years, and wage growth has now outpaced inflation for 15 months in a row. Today, almost 1.3 million more Canadians are working compared to before the pandemic. The OECD expects the Canadian economy to see the second fastest rate of growth among the G7 this year, and the fastest growth in 2025, tied only with the US. After our budget was tabled in April, Moody's and S&P, two of the leading credit ratings agencies, reaffirmed Canada's AAA credit rating with a stable outlook. In fact, Canada and Germany are the only G7 countries with a AAA rating from 2 of the 3 leading credit ratings agencies. Moody's also predicts that, over the medium term, Canada will see stronger economic growth than some other AAA economies. Ce sont des éléments de preuve très révélateurs. Ils montrent que l'économie du Canada est forte et résiliente, et que notre plan économique est financièrement responsable. Et cela compte vraiment, parce que cela veut dire que nous pouvons nous permettre de faire les investissements et de créer les emplois dont le Canada a besoin. Nous savons que c'est le temps d'investir dans les Canadiennes et les Canadiens. Et nous savons que la façon équitable de payer pour ces investissements, c'est de demander aux mieux nantis de contribuer un peu plus. Now, as I walk you through the details of the coming tax reform, I want to start by emphasizing that the changes we're making are focused exclusively on investment profits known as capital gains. When someone sells an investment that has appreciated in value, like a portfolio of stocks or a rental property, they accrue a capital gain. In Canada, these gains are taxed below the rate that we all pay on regular income. Today, in fact, only half of the capital gain is taxed at all. So, if someone makes a $2 million profit on a stock sale, they pay tax on only $1 million of that gain. That's a big advantage. Et il y a des conséquences à ce traitement préférentiel des gains en capital. De nombreux Canadiens et Canadiens parmi les mieux nantis gagnent la majeure partie de leur argent grâce à des investissements et non grâce à leur salaire Toutefois, en raison de la façon dont les gains sont imposés, des Canadiennes et Canadiens bien nantis peuvent payer un taux marginal d'imposition inférieur à celui d'une infirmière ou d'un charpentier. Ce n'est pas équitable. C'est du favoritisme. And so, beginning on June 25th, well-off Canadians will pay tax on 2/3 of their capital gains instead of just 1/2. I want to highlight 4 important points about this change. First, all Canadians will continue to pay no capital gains tax at all when they sell their principal residence. Any money you make on the sale of your home is yours to keep. Second, the tax changes do not apply to the first $250,000 of capital gains every single year. The higher rate applies only to gains above this $250,000 threshold. Now that means that most Canadians will still be able to sell successful investments without paying a higher rate. For example, a couple who owns a rental apartment will pay no additional tax on the first $500,000 in profit from a sale. Third, we're increasing the lifetime capital gains exemption for those who sell their small business or farm. Gains up to $1.25 million will now be entirely tax-free. And fourth, to encourage innovation and job creation, we're introducing a new incentive for entrepreneurs that will reduce the amount of tax they pay on capital gains and increase the lifetime exemption on the sale of all or part of their business. In the end, and this is key, we estimate that only 0.13% of Canadians with an average annual income of $1.4 million will be affected by this change in any given year. But millions more, especially younger Canadians, will benefit from it. Taxing capital gains is not an inherently partisan idea. It's an idea that everyone who cares about fairness should support. In fact, the idea of taxing capital gains in Canada was first broached by the government of Prime Minister John Diefenbaker and his Royal Commission on Taxation, chaired by Kenneth Carter. In the Royal Commission's report, Carter said that fairness should be the foremost objective of the tax system, and he memorably insisted, a buck is a buck is a buck. And Prime Minister Brian Mulroney raised the capital gains inclusion rate to 75%, higher than the rate we're establishing today. Yet, I have heard from some Canadians who are concerned. No one likes paying more tax, even those who can afford it the most. And to those Canadians, I want to say, we applaud your hard work and your success. You are making great contributions to our country. And we want more Canadians to enjoy success as you do and to contribute as you are. But I would also like to ask Canada's 1%, in fact, Canada's 0.13%, to consider this. What kind of a Canada do you want to live in? Do you want to live in a country where kids go to school hungry? Do you want to live in a country where a teenage girl gets pregnant just because she doesn't have the money to buy birth control? Do you want to live in a country where the only young Canadians who can buy their own homes are those with parents who can help with the down payment? Do you want to live in a country where we make the investments we need in healthcare, in housing, in old age pensions, but we lack the political will to pay for them and choose instead to pass a ballooning debt onto our children? Do you want to live in a country where those at the very top live lives of luxury, but must do so in gated communities, behind ever higher fences, using private health care and airplanes, because the public sphere is so degraded and the wrath of the vast majority of their less privileged compatriots burns so hot? Every Canadian across our great country needs to ask themselves these same questions, because the stakes could not be higher. La démocratie n'est pas inévitable. Elle a fonctionné et elle fonctionne aujourd'hui parce qu'elle a offert une vie confortable à la classe moyenne. Quand la démocratie ne peut même pas respecter ce contrat social le plus fondamental, il ne faut pas s'étonner de voir la classe moyenne perdre confiance en la démocratie elle-même. La politique fiscale n'est pas juste l'affaire des comptables et des économistes. Elle nous appartient à tous, parce que c'est grâce à elle que nous choisissons le pays que nous voulons bâtir et dans lequel nous voulons vivre. Our proposed reform to the tax system will be tabled and voted on in the House of Commons this week. I encourage all Canadians to pay attention. Pay attention to any members of Parliament voting against these changes and consider their motivation. Pay attention to those who are defending a tax system that favors the wealthy, to those who are standing against the principle of greater tax fairness for all Canadians, to those who want millionaires with significant investment gains to pay a lower tax rate than a teacher or a nurse, than a carpenter or a plumber. A fair shot at building a good middle-class life has always been the promise of Canada. Tomorrow, our government is taking another important step to create a country where that promise is fulfilled and where fairness prevails for every generation. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.
We'll now start the Q&A portion. It'll be one question, one follow-up. Just state your name and your outlet. There's a microphone just there for journalists interested. Nous passons maintenant à la période de questions. C'est une question en suivi. Notez votre nom et votre média. Il y a un micro juste là pour les journalistes intéressés. Merci.
And I bet Gary would be happy to answer questions too.
Thank you. I'm Andréane Williams with Radio-Canada, so I'll ask my questions in English. If you could answer in both languages, French and English, it would be great.
Okay, vous pouvez les poser en français aussi.
Well, this
si vous
way
voulez.
everyone will understand, and then yeah.
Okay.
So from what I understand, you haven't announced any changes or exclusions, exceptions, exemptions to this tax reform. So, but there's been a lot of pushbacks from all kinds of different business associations, physicians. So my question is, why no changes, or will there be changes introduced next week? And if so, what are they going to be? And if not, why are you sticking to your plan?
Okay, thank you very much for the question. The broad outlines of the tax change which we put forward in the budget are the ones that we will be following. The entry into force date will be June 25th. We are proposing an increase of the capital gains inclusion rate to 2/3 with a threshold of $250,000. Critically, people's principal residences, their homes, will remain free of a tax on capital gains. So those broad outlines continue to be what the path that we will be following. Why are we pursuing that path? We believe we need an economic plan that delivers fairness for every generation. A plan that makes essential investments in housing. A plan that makes essential investments in affordability. A plan that makes essential investments in economic growth, like investments in AI or in research, in universities, in scientists. And we believe that it is essential to make all of those investments in Canada and Canadians in a fiscally responsible way. We knew we had to table a fiscally responsible budget because it was really important to support the Bank of Canada. And we have seen the fruits of that fiscally responsible approach just a few days ago when the bank was the first G7 country to lower interest rates, something that is so important for Canada and Canadians. So given the need to make investments, given the need to do it in a fiscally responsible way, we realized that that needed to be underpinned by a plan for tax fairness, and that is what we are delivering, and that is the plan that we will be putting forward this week and beginning the legislative process to deliver. Alors, nous avons les éléments clés que nous avons expliqués dans le budget restent les mêmes. Le date d'entrée en vigueur sera le 25 juin. Nous allons changer le taux d'inclusion pour les gains en capital de 50% qu'on a aujourd'hui à 66,7%. Et nous allons créer un niveau de 250 000 $. Et c'est juste après cet niveau qu'on va avoir le nouveau taux d'inclusion pour les gains en capital. Alors, les éléments clés restent les mêmes. Pourquoi on fait cela? On fait cela parce que nous comprenons que nous avons besoin d'un plan économique équitable. Un plan économique équitable pour chaque génération. Nous comprenons que nous avons besoin d'un plan qui fait des investissements cruciaux dans le logement, qui fait des investissements dans l'abordabilité, qui fait des investissements dans la productivité économique, comme nos investissements dans la recherche, dans l'intelligence artificielle. Et nous comprenons l'importance de faire ces investissements en manière responsable financièrement. Alors, nous comprenons que la manière de financer ces investissements, c'est l'équité financière, l'équité économique, et c'est ce qu'on va créer avec notre plan, avec les changements qu'on va proposer au Parlement cette semaine.
Thank you. My follow-up question is that you have separated the capital gains legislation from the main budget bill. Are you creating a wedge issue by forcing the Conservatives to vote on capital gain tax specifically?
This is a significant tax reform, and there is nothing out of the ordinary in presenting a significant tax change separately from the main BIA. It's also the case that this is a meaningful political decision for Canada and Canadians. It's a meaningful choice for our country. It's a meaningful choice for all of us about what kind of a country we want to live in. And this week will be an important political moment for our democracy. It will be a moment when Canadians will be able to see what each one of their members of parliament believes in and stands for. Alors, c'est absolument normal quand on fait des changements dans notre système des impôts importants. C'est complètement normal d'avoir un processus législatif séparé du le grand législation d'implémentation du budget. En même temps, on est devant un grand choix politique pour notre pays, pour notre économie, pour notre démocratie. Et c'est correct que les Canadiens et Canadiennes auront une opportunité de voir quel est le choix de chaque député qui représente les Canadiens et Canadiennes. Et c'est ce qu'on verra cette semaine.
Thank you so much. Next question. Prochaine question.
Hi, thank you, Deputy Prime Minister Christian Freeland with CBC. Like my colleague, if you could answer in both official languages, that would be appreciated. Israel freed 4 hostages this weekend in Gaza, but the health ministry there says almost 300 Palestinians, including children, were killed during the IDF mission. What's your reaction to that news and Canada's response?
Thank you for the question. What is happening right now in Gaza is absolutely heartbreaking. The human suffering is absolutely horrific. And that is why our government is calling for an immediate ceasefire. That is why our government is calling for humanitarian aid to be supplied to the suffering people of Gaza, and we're calling for all hostages to be released. Merci pour la question. La situation est tellement terrible et du côté humain, c'est vraiment terrible de voir les images. C'est pourquoi notre gouvernement appelle pour un cessez-le-feu immédiat. C'est pourquoi notre gouvernement appelle pour la livraison d'aide humanitaire qui est si nécessaire. Et notre gouvernement appelle pour la libération de tous les otages.
Narendra Modi was sworn in today for the 3rd term as Indian PM, with a reduced majority, though. How does Canada plan to bridge the gap with India, and do the results factor into that strategy?
India is one of the world's largest rising economies, is one of Canada's important international partners. We will continue to work with our Indian counterparts on the bilateral issues that are important to us, and to work with them together on the international issues where we have a shared interest in working together to advance them.
And in French as well, please.
L'Inde est un grand pays, une grande économie en croissance. On continuera de travailler avec l'Inde sur les enjeux d'importance bilatérale et où il y a des enjeux internationaux, où l'Inde et le Canada partagent un intérêt en commun, on va continuer de travailler ensemble.
Thank you very much.
Next question, prochaine question. Oh. Okay, that concludes today's press conference. Ceci met fin à la conférence de presse. Merci.
Okay, and thank you very much everyone at the Y for hosting us. Really appreciate it. Merci beaucoup.